Greetings, everybody. Sorry for the early start. Okay, look, so it's supposed to be at 9:30, but it's also not supposed to be on Tuesday. So I went to 9 because I got a 10 o'clock show, and then I ended up not actually being ready at 9. But you know what? We're here, and we've got it going on. We're going to, we don't have the countdown. It's like a whole, we'll get the countdown back up. But howdy, we're going to do a quick little, 2-minute blabble blabble, and then we'll do the proper show start. Let's just see who's here right now. Bart Johnson, good morning. A show on a Tuesday. What? I know, it's because I'm on a plane tomorrow, and I really wanted to do this as part of the whole thing. It's kind of important. Let's see here. Bart's, that's all Bart's saying. Oh, you're waiting for your Edelchrome kit. Cool. Very nice. Very nice. Here to record says, working on something last minute or frantically trying to fix an issue. Actually, not an issue. Just trying to get a graphic together that I decided that I needed, that I've saved to the desktop, but is not showing up on the desktop here. So hopefully it's going to actually show up over here. I don't know what's happened. And Brian goes, I haven't touched anything. Where's my graphic? It should be on the desktop. It's definitely not here. Okay, I gotta go out there and figure out where my graphic is. I'll be right back. Let's just see where my art is, because I kind of need this. That was the whole thing that I was waiting for. It's not there. Okay, let's try this again. Save. Desktop. Oh, we went to the downloads folder, that's why. Well, that's just a silly place for it. Let's just do this, and schematic, and save, and hit go. And that should work. Okay, trying that again. We're trying that again. Hey, who's coming to the other show today? The, what am I doing? U-Point technology with DxO Photo Lab. We're going to be taking a look at that. The cool stuff that came over from the world of Nick. My graphic's still not here. I don't know why the graphic isn't there. Ryan, did it save? It saved to the desktop? Oh, there it is. It just showed up. Okay. There we go. Waiting for that whole Apple Cloud syncing thing to come through. Sometimes it takes a little bit too long. I'm going to open this in Photoshop so I can more easily zoom in and out of this big old thing. Alrighty. Let's see. If I go, can I go tab? How do you go full screen? Isn't it tab? I guess not. Oh, well, it's okay. We're going to look at it in Photoshop anyway. Alrighty. Whew. You guys ready for this thing? I'm ready for this thing. Bart says, would love to travel to New York City to see me at B&H, but it's on your wife's birthday. Not sure that would go over too well. Well, you could bring her, you know. No, I'm kidding. I completely understand. Okay, let's do this thing properly, shall we? Yes. Good morning and welcome to PhotoJoseph's Photo Moment, the first 3 times a week live show here on YouTube, usually Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, but this week we're throwing you for a loop because this week I'm traveling. So today is Tuesday, it is 9:08, well, it's like 9:15 because we got a late, 9:10, got a late start, but that's okay. We're doing it early and on a different day because tomorrow, Wednesday, I'll be traveling. Thursday, however, we will be doing a live show from B&H. It's not going to be on my channel, it'll be on B&H's channel. So let me just kind of put this whole week together for you. This is a week of streaming edumacation. Yesterday's show was actually not a total disaster. I'm kind of impressed at how well it came together. It was epic. It was my biggest, most complicated show I've ever done. If you haven't seen it, check it out. If you are into or looking to learn about live streaming, in yesterday's show, I had this show, the meta show, if you will, and then I had 5 sub-shows that went live during the other live show where I was showing different ways to go live. Exactly. That's what I thought. Today's show is about this studio, this setup. I get asked all the time how I'm doing things in here. I've done a very, very detailed, extensive series on that before. It's probably 5 hours long, but that is a lot more than most people want to watch. So this show today is going to be a condensed version of this. It's not going to be in as much detail, but it will answer the questions of how the heck are you doing that? On Thursday, I'm going to be at B&H in New York, and that is the wrap-up of this week of streaming. If you go to PhotoJoseph.com/BH or just go to the B&H event page, you'll see that you can register on December 7th, that's this Thursday, from 4 to 6 p.m. for a seminar there. Now, the cool thing is that even if you're not in New York, you can still register for it because they are going to stream the event live. That show is sponsored by Epiphan. They're my client for this. I'm doing a presentation for them, and I'm going to be primarily talking about the Webcaster X2, so on the lower end of the cost spectrum, and we touched on this one yesterday, up to the Pearl-2, the higher end of the cost spectrum, which we are going to be talking about a little bit today as well. But Thursday's show is all about that. So if you want to know the nitty-gritty of those things, or just learn how at the really high level you can do streaming from kind of a setup all the way through actual streaming setup thing, Thursday, check that out. That's that. Incidentally, if you are going to be in New York, or if you are in New York, we're doing a little meetup after the B&H thing, so December 7th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. You can find this on my Facebook page, or just go to PhotoJoseph.com/NYC. Wrapping this up at Robert's Camera in Indianapolis. This is not a streaming event, although I actually will be streaming this one on my page, so go figure that one. I am going to stream live to my page, but it is a presentation about my photography and videography and the things that I do with the cameras that I use and so on. So it's more about, it's a creative side as opposed to the techie side for the most part. And then if you are in Indianapolis, then you definitely want to come check out the little gathering, greeting, get together afterwards. So that is in the evening on December 9th, Saturday evening from 5 to 7 p.m. in Indianapolis. Again, photojoseph.com/IND will take you there. Okay, that is all of that. Let's get this whole thing started here, shall we? First, let me just show you the schematic. This is what we're going to be looking at today that explains what I've got in here. And right away, you can kind of see that, well, this is not just a simple little setup at all, not in the slightest. No, sir, no, ma'am. This is big. So here's the overview. Let me give you a little bit of a history here. I'm not going to go too deep into that because I don't want this to take all week. But let me give you a little bit of a history, how I evolved into this space, and then explain what it is we do here. So when I started doing live video, and I've been doing live training of one form or another for nearly a decade now, which is kind of incredible because 9 years ago or so when I really started, yeah, probably 9 years ago, live streaming was not a thing. But I was using services like GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, streaming my screen so I could do software training, and then there's a little baby picture of me up in the corner, and that was about it. I wanted to get to this, but it took the better part of 10 years to get here. Now, there's, good morning, everybody in the chat room. Oh, and incidentally, if you are watching live in the chat room, don't forget you can participate in this conversation by simply chatting. Make sure you put @PhotoJoseph in front. If you have questions, keep them on topic and drop them into there. Over the years, I evolved that system, putting better webcams, nicer lighting. Eventually, I think I had a better than a webcam. I probably had a DSLR or something. I don't even remember. I had a proper camera on there. Kind of crappy background, but you know, it just evolved over time, got the picture bigger. And at some point I got to a point where I was like, I really want to do this right. And at the time, my thought was Wirecast, which I showed in yesterday's show, and I expressed some of my frustrations with it. And we actually saw some of my frustrations live with Wirecast yesterday. But the short version of that disaster was I tried real hard for about a year to do a proper live show on Wirecast, and it just about did me in. And I talked to a friend of mine, this guy named Alex Lindsay. He runs this company called PixelCore. He does live streaming stuff, well, for the last administration, kind of big deal stuff, right? The guy knows his stuff. I'm almost afraid to talk to him because whenever I do, it costs me money. I go, hey, Alex, I'm trying to figure out how to do this. He goes, well, this is all you need. I'm like, that's $10,000. He goes, yeah, so that's what you need. But at the end of the day, hardware trumps software. It really does. If you're going to be doing this and you want to take it seriously, you got to get into hardware. You can do things with Wirecast and OBS that are very impressive, but there's a reliability issue, and you'll hit a max on what you can do with any given computer that's running it. The problem is that all of your switching, your encoding and your streaming all happens in one place, and it's software based on a computer that wasn't necessarily designed for that to begin with. Now, I know people that will custom build computers for it, and those tend to work out better, but as far as off-the-shelf stuff, it just... So what I eventually ended up doing is the system that I have today. So we're going to skip forward a little bit. I'm not going to go through all the things that I tried. We're going to get to what we have today. What I have today is this system called an ATEM switcher. It's from Blackmagic. You've heard of Blackmagic before. They make all kinds of really good stuff. And the funny thing about Blackmagic is you look at, if you've never done anything in this world of broadcast or cinematography, you look at Blackmagic stuff and you go, wow, that's a lot of money. But then you look at their competition and you go, oh my God, Blackmagic's cheap. And it really is. Yes, it's a lot of money, but it's a very affordable way to do things when compared to the rest of the stuff out there. And everything I'm going to show you today, it's not like I went and bought all this overnight. I have been building this up over the course of years. I do have a lot of money invested in this system right now, but the cool thing is that the way that I based it, I can just keep on adding stuff to it, and I'm nowhere near the capacity of that centerpiece, that ATEM switcher. So what is an ATEM? An ATEM is a hardware switching device. It doesn't do the encoding for streaming. It doesn't do the streaming itself. All it does is the switching. I can send in 16 different sources into it. Mostly SDI. It has like one HDMI input, mostly SDI input. And then I can do picture-in-pictures. I can do split screens. So I can do split screens like this. I can switch camera angles, get a close-up camera angle, got my overhead camera angle, which I haven't focused today. All these different camera angles to switch over to the computer. Go to the computer. I can do a picture-in-picture with the computer. All of these things are set up as presets. These are all designed in advance into the switcher. We're getting some buzz on the microphone there, Ryan. I don't know if you're hearing that. I don't know where that's coming from. How weird. There's no, you know what, let me just get rid of this phone in case that's it. It might be my phone. Let me just get that out of the way. It's all based off of presets that you build and run, and I'll show you a little bit of this as well. But the point is that this big expensive box, and it is an expensive box, it's like $4,000, and I think the newer model is actually $6,000. This isn't cheap. But this is what allows me to take in all these inputs, switch between them seamlessly, instantaneously, is 100% reliable, totally rock solid. It's a phenomenal piece of hardware. It's a lot of money, but it does allow me to push all these cameras into it. And when I first started doing this setup, it was a camera and a screen, and then I wanted to bring in a Skype system, and I wanted to bring in another camera. And to this point right now, as you're going to see, I have a lot of different cameras, a lot of different inputs coming into it. So let me switch over to the schematic now, because this will be an easier way to see what's happening and get an overall understanding of it, kind of a top-down view, because if I just talk through it, at some point you're going to go, I have no idea where you're at right now. So let me just show you the schematic, and we'll take it from there. So let's go into like this view here, and let me zoom out of this thing. I'm just running this in Photoshop so I can zoom in and out of it easily. But as a quick overview, you've got the Blackmagic ATEM. This is the 2ME model sitting here in the middle. Coming into that, and the schematic lines aren't totally accurate, so don't worry about accuracy on the lines here. But it's coming into this, I've got 4 cameras, 2 LUMIX GH4s and 2 Blackmagic cameras. I'll explain the differences between those and why there's different ones in there in a moment. So those are coming in as camera sources. I've got multiple computers coming in. Here's the MacBook Pro that you're looking at right now. That's my demo system. I've got a chat/Skype Mac. That is a system that is here so that I can do things like this. This shows the split screen. I'm actually looking at the screen that you're seeing there. I'm actually looking at that. That is half of a screen. If I show you the whole screen, I don't usually do this, so let's see, here we go. That's the entire screen, but half of it is reserved for something else. You don't normally see that. What you normally see is simply this half of it. So that is a whole separate computer. If I'm doing a Skype interview, that's the computer that they come in on, is that Skype interview. That's why it's called the Skype/chat machine. Say that 5 times fast. So that's that one there. MacBook Pro, these are just showing different things of what would come in here. I handle all my switching. Well, not switching necessarily. I handle the control of the ATEM. That's what this little interface here is. The control of the ATEM is handled through this computer, this MacBook Pro that I'm on right now, that you're looking at right now. I can also control my Behringer audio interface up here if I want to, and this is where I do any demos that I would be running. Those are all done on this machine. Zoom out a little bit. I also have an iOS interface, so I can plug in an iPhone or an iPad. That runs through an HDMI connector into a DECIMATOR, which is a converter. We'll come back to that in a moment, which feeds in there. And I think that's all of these sources coming in. Yes, so 4 cameras, 2 computers, and an iOS interface. Those are the ones coming in. Like I said, I think there's 16. Is that right? I don't remember. A lot of inputs on here. I got way more to go. Coming out of this Blackmagic, there's a reference monitor. This little dual monitor right there, that's actually sitting in front of me. You can't see it. It's just out of frame, but it is right here. Like I'm touching the top of it right now. This allows me to see all my previews, all the different displays that I could be switching to, and then see what's actually on the air. So I know it's my kind of confidence monitor, so I know what's actually on the air. Coming out of that, it goes into a shuttle recorder, hypertext shuttle recorder, which records the show in ProRes, so if there's a disaster in the stream, I have access to that. The actual switching, when you see me switch, you're seeing me reach down to something that's just out of screen here, but occasionally see it on the overhead, and that is an iPad. This is an iPad mini right now. Normally I have an older, bigger iPad on here. It's been giving me grief, so I've switched over to this old mini, but I don't like it as much because the buttons aren't as big. But this is what allows me to do the switching. The number one question I get is, what app are you using on your iPad to do your switching? Because people think that I'm somehow controlling, that I'm somehow doing the switching itself through the iPad. No. All that this iPad is a remote control, like a remote control for your TV. That's all this is. It's a third-party app made by a company called Strata. Is the company Strata? Strata Pro is the software. Maybe that's not the company name. Anyway, Strata Pro. It is a third-party interface for the switcher that's up on the roof up here. That's all it is a remote control. So all the switching that you see on there, it's just a remote control. Okay, then let's talk audio. I've got this thing called a Behringer X Air16 audio interface, which was remarkably gifted to me by one of you amazing, fabulous, awesome, beautiful viewers. Thank you so much. It's an incredible box. It is so cool. It is a totally virtual interface that allows me to do all of my audio switching, EQing, all this kind of stuff through the computer. In fact, it also means that Ryan out in the other room can do audio tweaking. So whenever if he hears like my microphone's not in a good place, it's too high, too low, too high, too low, so it's too loud, too quiet, he can adjust the levels in there, he can adjust EQ, he can do everything on there. It's super awesome. And he can do that in the other room while I'm live on the air. Let's see, there's the mics that plug into that. So I got a few different mics, we'll cover those. And then there's this large TV, this large LCD, and that's just for comments or video chat. You don't see that, but that's what I see right underneath my camera here. Where is that buzzing coming from today? God, that is annoying. Now, up until a few weeks ago, remember I said how much I'm kind of Wirecast. Wirecast doesn't have to be used to do all the switching. You can use Wirecast just to encode and stream. And so that's what I've been using. And it's good for that. It's not the greatest encoder in the world, but it works. Some time ago, I mentioned that Epiphan is a client now. Epiphan, I've had a bunch of their stuff on the show before. They're the ones who I'm going to be in H for next week. I have on loan from them, and I have no idea how long I have to keep this for, but it is awesome, this thing called the Pearl-2. Now, the Pearl-2 will replace a lot of what you just saw on here. And this is something I'll be talking about extensively at B&H. So I'll tell you more about it there. Here, I just want to kind of show you very briefly of my system, what it replaces, but today's show is more about my system and how I'm using it. But it would replace this Blackmagic switcher right here. It would replace the HDMI to SDI encoders. It would replace this DECIMATOR frame rate converter. It would replace the recorder. It would replace, let's see here, and then the computer that is needed to do the encoding and streaming if I had the Wirecast, which is no longer in this schematic. So all of this stuff coming through the Blackmagic used to go over SDI into an SDI to Thunderbolt converter, Blackmagic converter, into an iMac G5, iMac 5K, where it was encoded by Wirecast into a streamable signal and pumped out over the interwebs up to YouTube, and then YouTube takes it from there. That is now being handled by the Pearl. So the Pearl is a dedicated hardware box that does switching, streaming, encoding, or switching, encoding, streaming, recording all together in one. It also does frame rate conversion, scaling. It's a remarkable box. It's $8,000. And while that seems like a hell of a lot of money, obviously it is a lot of money, it is actually a completely fair, I won't call it a bargain, but it is a completely fair price when you look at all the other pieces that it replaces. You don't need the switcher, you don't need the scalers and converters, you don't need a dedicated high-powered computer to do the streaming, you don't need streaming software. It's all built into this one box, and the box is actually quite portable. It's remarkable. I am not using it to all of that extent right now. I am using it almost exclusively for the encoding. Because it is a hardware encoder, it's a dedicated hardware encoder, the encoding quality is very nice. So what you're looking at right now on YouTube is an 8 megabit stream. If I try to use Wirecast to encode to 8 megabit, it chokes and dies. Most I can get out of it is 6 megabit, and that 6 megabit does not look as good as 6 megabit would on the Pearl, but the Pearl, I can take it all the way up to 8 megabit. I'd probably actually go farther than 8 megabit. Actually, I know that I can. I've done 4K out of this thing at 12 megabit, no problem. We're not doing 4K yet. We're going to, though. 4K live. That's something else you can do with the Pearl. Really cool, right? But right now I'm using it just to do the encoding at 1080p. In the opening part of the show, not this show because I needed the iPad somewhere else, but normally right now you'll see a clock playing in the beginning. I kind of need to tweak that better, but that's also altered through there. And then also at the end of this show, you will see a foursquare come in. In fact, Ryan, why don't you throw up the foursquare for just a moment here and let me know when it's up, and then just leave it on for a couple seconds. We have this foursquare thing that comes up where my video is going to shrink into the corner. You should be seeing it right now. This allows us to put graphics for the end screen. Go ahead and take it back off, Ryan. This allows us to put graphics for the end screen of YouTube, and it's just me up there so I can talk over that last little bit, and that's handled through the Pearl as well. I could actually do that on the ATEM too, but at that point it's like, let's leave that to Ryan's hands. It's off in the Pearl. So that's the Pearl part of it. So right now it's used just for the encoding. So now let's go back to the Blackmagic and talk a little bit more about the details of what's going into this thing. So the Blackmagic ATEM 2ME has a ton of stuff coming into it. Let's go through the cameras to start, since it's obviously one of the most important things. We've got 4 different cameras coming in, 2 Lumix cameras, 2 Blackmagic cameras. The Blackmagic cameras are in use because they have SDI out. Why does this matter? SDI transmits out of the camera in real time. HDMI does not. HDMI is delayed by a couple of frames. Okay, well, so what? So you got a couple frame delay between real time and what's hitting the real world. No big deal, right? Totally not a big deal. Except that audio needs to be in sync with video for obvious reasons, and the audio coming into the switcher is coming in real time. The video coming in over HDMI is not real time. It is just ever so slightly delayed. So now your audio and video is out of sync. You go, okay, well, there's an easy solution to this, right? All I got to do is pump my audio through the camera, and the camera puts the audio and video in sync and sends them out to the ATEM, and off you go. And that is an absolutely 100% perfect solution, unless you want to self-monitor. See, I'm listening to myself in here. I hear my own voice, and I'm hearing myself in real time. If you are self-monitoring and there's a delay, your brain will crawl out of your head and murder you. It is just one of these insane, your head goes, I can only do this for about 2 seconds, and then forget it. You can't do it. Your brain goes nuts. So you cannot self-monitor on delay. Now, technically, what I could do is, and now kind of as I've learned and expanded on this, I could route my audio through the cameras and then have another separate routing of the audio into the mixer that comes back to me so I can hear myself. But the advantage of the way that I have it set up right now is I hear what you hear. I am literally hearing the same signal that you are because I'm hearing it from the point in the path where it's going out to broadcast. So I know exactly what you're hearing. And this is super important to me because it allows me to ensure there's no other sounds happening. Like where did there's some music going on. Where's that music coming from? Oh, is this system's playing a video for some reason? Or that system's not loud enough. I need to make it louder without having to look at meters. I can hear it. I hear what you hear. And that to me, from my workflow, is critically important. Because I do all my own switching, I need to know what things sound like as well as what they look like. So that became a really critical part of my workflow that I was not willing to let go of, managing to have my own audio monitored in real time, self-monitoring, which then means, of course, that the video needs to come out of the cameras in real time as well. So that brings us back to why I'm using the Blackmagic cameras. They do real-time output because they're SDI out. Now, just to kind of, if I can do this, let me see here. I'll show you. Go a little bit wide on there. I don't know, this might kind of work. So here's the close-up camera. So that camera is a GH4. If you hear this, does that look, see how it's just ever so slightly out of frame, out of sync? If I put my face in here, can I do this, and I start talking, then you can probably see right here, I don't know if it's even focused right now, but you can probably tell that it's just a little bit out of sync. It's not much. It's not much, but it's enough where you go, yeah, no, that's not right. That's something wrong with that. So that's why I can't have my video and audio being out of sync. People will say, oh, well, you can get a sync delay. You can get a box that will actually delay your audio. Yes, it would delay the audio to bring it in sync with the camera, but then it wouldn't be in real time coming back to me. So audio delay doesn't work, and you can't use, there's no such thing as a reverse sync delay because that would defy the laws of time and physics. So if someone comes out with a way to back things up in time 4 frames, that'd be awesome. But right now, that's not possible. Elon's working on that. Don't worry about it. Okay, let's see here. There's a question coming up. Bart says, let's put that up here real quick. Bart says, how many inputs can the Pearl-2 take? And if you ditch the ATEM, how would you control the switching on the Pearl? Okay, 2 very good questions. So the Pearl can take in, you know what, let me just pull it up. I don't remember off the top of my head. I need to look at it. So let me, Pearl-2, let me pull up a graphic of it. We'll take a look. So we can answer that question. As far as the switching, the Pearl switching interface is all done via web browser. And so I could easily do that, pull it up on my screen here, and even on a touch interface, it works perfectly well there. And then you'd have a touch switching interface. And actually, it would be a better solution than what I've got now, because right now, if we look at, let me focus this camera here, which I forgot to focus this morning. Here we go. If you look at my my switcher, here we go. These little chiclets, those little colored chiclets, those are my switching macros. Those are what switch my camera sources. This is why quite often in this show, you'll see me go to the wrong place. I'll do something like this. I'll go, oh, whoops, wrong camera. You'll see that happen quite a bit because I'm reaching down, trying to basically, instinctively remember which color chiclet I'm going for, and sometimes I hit the wrong one. With the Pearl interface, you actually see a thumbnail, and it's a much larger thumbnail of the interface that you've laid out. So if I have created a picture-in-picture interface layout, I will see that. I'll see the picture-in-picture, so it's a much more obvious tap to go to. So that's kind of cool. Let's see here now. Let's look at the back of the Pearl. Here we go. This is the Pearl-2. Here's the back of it. So wait, is that right? Is that right? Yeah, I guess it is. You have Pearl-4. Yeah, that's it. So it's got 2 SDI inputs, which are 4K. It has 4 HDMI inputs, 2 in HD and 2 in 4K. Then it's got 2 HDMI outputs, USB 3 input, which you can bring in a webcam. We actually have a webcam out there that plugged into it. We can do that. This is your Ethernet port, XLR audio for your audio interface, RC audio if you need it, and then RS-232, so you can do all kinds of crazy programmable stuff on there. These boxes are largely designed to go nuts externally. It's kind of an open interface. You can go in and do some pretty cool things. But that's the limit of the that's the extent of the inner inputs on there. So less than what I have here, but if I did this show on the Pearl, I would, let me think. Yeah, see, I couldn't. I'm using too many inputs already to do exactly what I'm doing here. There you go. Okay. Daddy MCC says, what would you suggest for a low-budget streaming, a 2-camera live event? Did Wirecast the first year of streaming this annual event and didn't go so smoothly? It's like a 2 to 3 hour pay event. Yeah, see, Wirecast, there you go again. Okay, I haven't played with it yet. This is something, can you tune in Thursday to the event at B&H, because the X2, which is only $300, it only handles 1 camera, but they've just added a feature that literally was just added last week, and I haven't had the time to really look into it yet. But I believe my understanding of it is that you can use an X2 on each camera, so you'd have 2 X2s. It's still $300 each. It's still a bargain, and then handle your switching through some kind of a web interface. I think that's what it's designed for. Tune in Thursday because, like I said, it's brand new. I still got to do my homework on that so that I can talk about it on Thursday. But that might be the solution for you to do. Okay, so let's go back. Should we switch this back up here, back to the schematic? Okay, so back to this. I explained why I'm using the 2 Blackmagic cameras. And incidentally, one of them is this camera right here. That's the Blackmagic, one of them. The other one is out in the studio when I'm out in the studio camera, but it's turned off right now. We don't have it on out there right now. But that's, if I'm going to do something out in the main studio, that's the camera out there. The 2 GH4s are the close-up camera right here. So there's that camera, and then the overhead camera. Those are the 2 GH4s. Now, GH4s, as I said, are HDMI out, not SDI out. And no, if you connect a what's that thing called? The YAG to a GH4, it only outputs 1080i 60 out of the SDI port. All it is a HDMI to SDI conversion, and it only brings out 1080i 60. So don't think that you're going to get away with using that instead of a proper converter. So here's the converter that we've got. Coming out of the GH4s, that goes into a Blackmagic HDMI to SDI converter, and then that runs SDI into the Blackmagic switcher. So 4 SDI cameras coming in. The computer itself, the MacBook Pro, is also, of course, HDMI out, so that runs into another HDMI to SDI converter, as well as the Skype/chat machine. We're also running into an HDMI converter. Now, here's a funny thing about bringing a computer into this. One of the requirements, and I would say limitations of the ATEM, the setup that I've got here, is that every input has to be the exact same frame size and frame rate. You cannot mix signals on there. You set the ATEM to what you want it to be, and that's everything has to come in on that. If it's not exactly lined up, you get a black frame. So what that means is if you're going to do 1080p, 1920 by 1080, okay, 1920 by 1080, you have to send in a 1920 by 1080 source. You can't send in a standard F source. You can't send in a 4K source. They all have to be exactly 1920 by 1080. They also have to be exactly the same frame rate. So you can choose 2398, 24, 2997, 5994. You can do progressive, you can do interlace, you can do all kinds of great choices, but everything has to be the same. In fact, let me bring up the ATEM and show this to you. So here's the ATEM switching software. Here's the options. I can do, there's down to NTSC, who cares about that? 720p, 1080i, C50, 5994. It does PAL as well, 24, 25, 2398, 29, all these different options. But when I choose one of these, it will, everything has to be exactly that coming in. So therein lies the criticalness of finding a frame rate and frequency frame rate and frequency / frame size that you can get identical across all of your inputs. And that is not an easy thing to do. The Mac became the hardest thing to get right because Macs want to go out at 30 hertz, which is not 2997, that's equivalent of 30p, or 60 hertz, which is 60p, or some of them will do 24 hertz, 24p, not 2398. Almost any camera that you buy will do 2997, that is not 30. Many of them will do 2398, that is not 24. So you have to find something that lines up. What I've standardized on here is 1080p, so 1920 by 1080, 24 hertz, 24.00 frames per second. The Mac will do 24 hertz. The Lumix cameras both do cinema mode, 24. The Blackmagic cameras all do natively 24. The the cameras and the inputs. Yeah, that's the computers. So 2 computers, 24 hertz. 2 cameras at 24p on the ATEM from the Lumix, and 2 cameras at 24p from the Blackmagic. The last device is the iPad, the iOS connection, which outputs only if you take an iPad or an iPhone and you connect it to the HDMI converter. What you get out is 1080p 5994. You can't change it. So that is why there is one, and just one, get the right screen, here we go, DECIMATOR. The DECIMATOR is a frame rate converter and scaler? Is it scaling as well? I think it does scaling too, but whatever, I'm using it for frame rate conversion. So this allows me to take the 5994 signal out of the iOS device and convert it to 24p coming out of here. It's a great box. DECIMATOR boxes are awesome. They make a bunch of different types of hardware for scaling. They have yet to introduce their 4K stuff though, so I need 4K so I can go 4K on here. Still waiting for them to release a product. Anyway, but that's why that is in there. Because a bunch more questions just came up. Let me pull these up real quick here. Gadget says, how much is the Pearl 2? It's $8,000 with the 4K option. I think $6,000 without 4K option, I think is right, but $8,000. Daddy sees a Pearl 2 B&H is showing at $8,500. I wonder if that's with something else or if the price has gone up. Could be either way. Gadget says, I bought a cheap converter from eBay to up-down scale from 4K for my ATEM. Search eBay for HDMI to HDMI 4K 2K scaler converter. You're scaling, it does up and down? See, I've tried a bunch of cheap ones. What are you scaling though? What are you scaling, Gadgets? Because what I have found, I've bought several of these and returned them all because they will work okay for something like a DVD player. They will not work for a computer. And I don't remember exactly why. I talked to some reps at B&H and they basically said that they're not designed for that level of precision, something like that. There was a good reason for it, but I've tried several of them, haven't worked. Let me know what you're actually converting through. If there is one, I will buy it in a heartbeat. Bart says, do you know of any cheaper devices to do the encoding? I've been having issues with OBS handling the encoding on my machine. It's a beefy iMac with plenty of power. So there you go again, OBS, Open Broadcasting System, or Wirecast. Sometimes it just doesn't work. A dedicated hardware encoder. No, the cheapest dedicated hardware encoder that I know of is the Epiphan Webcaster X2. If you're looking for something that just does the encoding and then you're going to do streaming with something else, no, I don't. I have actually asked Epiphan, I've told Epiphan that in my opinion, there is a market for an encoder that is as good as the Pearl that doesn't do the switching. Because the encoder in the Pearl is definitely better than the one that's in the X2. No question about it. I mean, it should for that much more money, right? But I'd said, take out all the switching. All I want is an encoder and streamer, right? I want to be able to feed in a HDMI or SDI signal and have it convert that to 8 megabit, MP4, whatever the hell it is, and then stream that off to YouTube. I want a box that just does that. I think that'd be a great market. The closest thing to that right now would be the Teradek VideoU Pro, which is a great little box. It itself has had issues. Actually, ironically, if you watched yesterday's show, I was talking about some of the issues that I've had with it. Their tech support got back to me right after the show, go figure, and I've basically come to the conclusion that the Wi-Fi on my box is yet again dead. It's my second version of the box. Wi-Fi is just, it's totally unreliable. If you ignore Wi-Fi and ignore everything that's connected via Wi-Fi, I think the box works great. And that is a dedicated hardware streaming encoder. So that might be something to look at. And you can feed HDMI into that, so anything HDMI can go into it. Okay, let's see here. Thank you, Ryan. I've got to end this thing before 10 o'clock, so I have another show starting then. Bart said, oh, we already answered that. Marco says, have you ever tried SwitchRes X to bring your Macs into the ATEM? Works like a charm for you. Will it do frame rate conversion, though? I have played with SwitchRes X. It's honestly one of the most confusing interfaces I've ever seen in my life. If you know how, okay, here's Marco, here's what I want to do. If you know how to do this, I will send you a wonderful bottle of whiskey. I will, if you like whiskey. What I want to do, I want to stream 4K, right? Because everything is ready for that. All my cameras are 4K, the switcher's 4K, my encoder's 4K, everything is 4K. The last bastion, what I cannot get out in 4K is the Mac. Now I can set the Mac to 4K, but then you're going to get a microscopic view of everything. What I want is for the Mac to go into Retina mode out into the ATEM. So I want it to be, looks like 1920 by 1080, but actually outputting 3840 by 2160, Ultra HD. That's what I wanted to do. I figured that SwitchRes X could do it, but I've never got it to work. If you know how, there is a great bottle of whiskey in it for you. Okay, you know how to reach me offline if you really know a solution to this. Gadget says the Decimator range may be awesome, but I got something way cheaper on eBay. Gadgets, again, I'd love to hear about it. If it's doing frame rate conversion and it's reliable and good quality, I want to know. Put it, either email me or drop it in the comments down below after the show. You can't put links in the live chat, and the live chat goes away anyway. Put it in the comments down below afterwards. And I'm sure many others watching this would love to know that. Gadget says, yes, it does up and down on the GH5. Okay, yeah. Tell me what model number of the scaler you've bought. I want this. Thank you. And you're going to PM me the link on Facebook. That works too, but also put it in the comments here. Okay, I got to get moving here. Back to my layout. Okay, so that is the Decimator. So that's that. Let's see here. This we talked about reference monitor and the recorder. So again, I'm capturing it to ProRes just so that I have a backup in case things go bad. So that when I say things go bad, what I mean is if YouTube decides to completely throw a hissy fit or my internet connection drops or something like that and my show goes bad. Usually I stream to YouTube. And historically what we've done, we stream to YouTube, we leave that on YouTube, we would trim it. YouTube has a little editor, we'd cut the heads and tails off. We are no longer trimming because we have been told that the YouTube editor is going away. So we're now kind of basically, well, we're ready for it. We're practicing now doing it. So if we miss the timing, and that's on Ryan, Ryan starts the show and ends the show and tries to get the timing exactly right so that the show starts with the opening music and it ends after about 20 seconds of that 4 square up, because that's how long you can put end cards on YouTube. So Ryan is the one timing it. If you've never met Ryan, he's my assistant. He's in the other room right now. He's the one timing that and hopefully getting that right so that we never have to use the editor again. If that whole thing goes to hell, then I've got a local copy that is in ProRes, which I can then drop into Final Cut, do my edits, and encode and upload. The Pearl is currently also recording the same thing that it's streaming, so the 8 megabit encode. I keep that as a local backup, as an archive. So if I ever want to do a best of show or I just want to have a copy of the show, I don't keep the ProRes because they're like 100 gigs every show. I really don't need that. So that's what happens there. So that ProRes recording is temporary. The Behringer XR2 interface, I would love to wax poetically about this thing because it is beautiful, but all I'm going to do is show you the interface for it so you know what's happening in here. Let me connect to it here. The cool thing about this is that multiple people can be connected at once. Ryan's connected on here. If he was to adjust levels on one of these, you would actually see the sliders moving. This allows me to do, so you can see all my audio inputs, all the levels coming in, and then I can even do, look at this, EQ with real-time analysis of the voice coming in, the dialogue or music, whatever's coming in, so we can really see exactly what we're getting, see our levels. It's an insane, insane product. It is so incredibly awesome. Coming into that, the majority of the time that you hear me, I am on the Sennheiser wireless. That's what I'm on right now. So I got a wireless pack. It's down here. The pack's obviously on my back. It's sitting up there. I am also, if I'm going to do a podcast type show where I don't need my hands to do things, then a superior audio quality will come through the Heil PR40, which is a beautiful microphone, but it sits in front of me in my face, and I really don't want that when I'm doing a show like this. I need my hands free. I need to be able to move around, hence the wireless lav. But that is just sitting here out of sight. Pull it in when I need it. You also may have noticed on here that you see monitors. That's my in-ear monitor so that I can hear the show. So that's coming out of the Behringer, and that is what we're seeing right here, my little in-ear monitors. We're going to, by the way, link to all of this gear is going to be linked down below. So if you're going to buy any of it, please use those links. Affiliate links are great. They help pay the bills around here. And then last thing here, there is a kind of floating off free, a little MacBook Air. That is just a very old MacBook Air. I have that sitting over here. It just allows me to monitor. It's not connected to the switcher at all. It just allows me to see how many people are watching live and also, more importantly, see the stream health. So if my internet connection goes bad, Ryan's usually out there so he can tell me. For this show, Ryan's pretty much always there. But the live training shows that I do, I usually just do it myself. And from here, I can monitor that and make sure that nothing's gone to hell. That's the basics of it. We're not talking about lighting in this one. We're not talking about all the other fun accessories, or the set. That's all covered in that much bigger show. But that is the basics of this show. What ear-in-ear monitors am I using? These are, I'm trying to look for the box, Westone, W-E-S-T-O-N-E. I really like these guys. Yeah, here, I don't think this is the headphones. I think this is just a replacement cable, but this is what I'm using, Westone. We'll put those in the links in there as well. I bought the flesh-colored ones I had to custom order the flesh-colored cable, which, matches my flesh color. I think you can get them in different colors, but that way it's virtually invisible. I just don't want to have this big, huge, black, funky cable. See, these wrap over my, can't really show you this very clearly, but you can kind of see here it's wrapped over my ear. Those wrap around. You'll see me often pumping this thing in because this one tends to fall out. I don't know why. My ears are funny shaped, I guess, but that's good. Okay. Gadgets, you're saying that for the scaler that it does up and down on your GH5. Video signal is going to be different than a computer signal, but still, you're going to let me know which model you've got. I can't wait to try it. Can't wait to check it out. Philippine Scenes is asking, will I ever have a Mevo in your setup? I use a Mevo all the time when I'm traveling. I showed the Mevo in yesterday's show. The Mevo, however, cannot be incorporated into this setup because the Mevo does not give me any kind of output other than what it streams to. I cannot connect the Mevo into my switcher. If I could, it'd be great. I'd love it. I'd like to stick one outside just to kind of show the wide shot of the studio. It'd be fun. I love the Mevo. It's a great little product, but it does not integrate into a system like this at all. Okay, that's it. I'm gonna wrap this up because I'm back on the air again in 12 minutes for a live training, which incidentally, if you don't know what that is this. I'm going to be doing a live training on DxO's Photo Labs. The history here is that they just bought the Upoint technology from Google or licensed it. I'm not sure which, but they've got it. They've built it into their Photo Lab app, and I have that. I have a copy of that, and I'm going to show it to you. Just that part of it. That's all we're going to look at is just that part of it later today, in like 10 minutes. Okay, that's everything. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in on this one. Hopefully this is helpful. I know it's the short version, but it was still almost an hour long. For the full-on detailed version, click on the up here. We've put the playlist up there. You can check that thing out. It'll also come up at the end screen here. You can check out that playlist and see what it is. All right, let's wrap this thing up, guys. Time for me to get moving on to the next show. Tons of fun. Thank you for for tuning in today live. For those of you who are here, remember, the rest of this week I'm not going to be live at normal times, but I will do some other shows out there somewhere along the way. Take care of yourselves. See you next time. Bye bye.